not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
What's up, guys? So spoiler alert here, there's going to be some bosses. I wanted to showcase that this extremely defensive build, the most in the game, also has the ability to absolutely destroy content offensively without, any risk at all. So, like we can beat up on some of the hardest bosses in the game. We can one-shot a lot of stuff, which, as you guys know, if you've been around the channel, that's my thing. I really like to one-shot stuff. And, we can do it all from the safety of behind a shield, where we can take no stamina damage and no damage. So you see, we can just come to big bosses, doesn't matter, just tank everything, no stamina loss, no health loss. And when it's our turn, we just absolutely destroy everything. Let's get into it. What's up, guys? So here's the endgame version of our Juggernaut build. This is the build we made for new players that are looking for a Greatshield tank build, and I'm going to get into a lot of the flexibility of this build and how you can change it around to meet your needs and play at endgame. So we always start with stats, so let's jump right into it. Vigor is obviously one of the most important stats. That's your life pool, so get that as high as you can. At 50, I felt like we weren't really sacrificing much in terms of being right there at the soft cap, but still being able to have some points to mess around with endurance and other stats. So you can take away from stats, and we'll get more into that in a minute, but 50 is a really good spot for vigor, I felt like, especially because you shouldn't be taking many hits, but you have a lot of life if you do. Mind we don't mess with. New players are going to want maybe a little bit more to experiment with spirit ashes that they might want to use, but two of the best spirit ashes in the game we have access to with 9 mind, and I'll get over that more in detail. The endurance side of it is really for, we have a lot of stamina at 37 endurance. It's really for armor. Your equip load is based on your endurance, so I felt like 37 was a really good sweet spot with the points that I had to spend. I kind of put a couple extra here to give a decent amount of defense on the armor side, and a really large stamina pool, so that way if you're sitting behind the shield, that you have a lot of consecutive attacks before you have to let your shield down and get your stamina back. Strength is the bread and butter of this build, so you're going to want to go strength and arcane are the damage dealing stats. We're a hybrid build, but strength is really what you need, especially if you want to use the fingerprint shield. You're going to need 48 strength, and again, we're really close to the soft cap there, so our damage scaling on strength weapons, heavy affinities, is really good with 48 strength. So I highly recommend you stay at 48 strength. And you have to stay at 48 strength if you do want to use the fingerprint shield, unless you want to switch around some talismans and and stuff like that, or rely on your strength knot tier in your flask, and we'll get more on that stuff too. But it's that's a 3-minute buff. It's really nice to have your shield actually have the capability of blocking for the entirety of the game, so I highly recommend getting 48 strength immediately if you're going to use this shield. Dexterity, we have 15. The only reason we pushed all the way up to 15 instead of 14 for most of our weapons, we put that extra point in there so that we could use a talisman that gives us an extra 5 dexterity to be able to use the answer rapier. And I'm pronouncing that incorrectly on purpose so that the algorithm doesn't eat me alive on the censorship and stuff, because obviously I know the correct way of pronouncing that weapon. So before you go correct me in the comments, I do it in every video, and everybody's like, why do you pronounce it that way? That's why. But yeah, so that's why we're at 15 dex, and the Anspur is actually really good. It applies a lot of buffs. We'll get into the weapons here in a minute. The intelligence, we're a dumb big Juggernaut holding a shield, so basically like me in real life. But so we don't need a lot of intelligence. And then faith, we're only pushing faith to 15 for the flame grant me strength. The flame grant me strength is a huge buff for both our physical damage and our fire weapon arts that we've been using, as you saw in the the beginner's guide video. So that's something where it's kind of optional, but I highly recommend it. And then the arcane, we are pushing to scale our bleed damage, our occult damage, all that kind of stuff, and just basically gives us a lot more raw damage and a lot more bleed procs with seppuku. So I'll get more onto that stuff as well, but basically our 2 damage stats are strength and arcane. And if you were to want more life or endurance, I would take from the arcane stat. That's if you're a newer player and you want to change stuff around, you want to go like heavier armor or something like that, and you're like, man, where can I take stats from? I would take it from Arcane. You've got plenty of wiggle room there. You're really close to soft cap here. It's not necessary that you are. You can always go Blood Affinity, and it's not going to affect your damage scaling much with the Arcane. It's really when you get into a cult. So, you know, again, Arcane is the stat. If I were to take from any stat as a new player and put more into Endurance or Vigor or Mind or whatever you want to put it in, I would take from Arcane. That's just me. You know, the cool thing about all this stuff is it's really flexible, and you don't have to stay at 150, right? So, you know, like, you could keep going and then, you know, obviously prioritize the stats that, you know, I've emphasized here in this video, but ultimately do what you want to do to have the most fun with the build. That's all that matters, right? Is your fun, especially as a new player. So let's start getting into more of the weapons and the gear, and I can show you guys some of that stuff. All right, guys. So I want to talk about weapons first. I really wanted to give, for this particular new player build, options that let you attack while holding up your shield. So that way you still had that kind of that invincible defense while putting out damage at the same time. So you're basically full defense mode and offensive mode simultaneously, and the only way that that's possible in these Souls games are through thrusting weapons generally. So spears, thrusting swords, which, you know, like we'll talk about some of those as well, and basically that's why I picked so many of those type of weapons for this build, if you're curious. I really like the pike because the range and the speed. So as you saw in the beginning, we started with the lance because we had access to it. We did not have access to the pike right at the beginning of the game, or I probably would have picked that one up instead right off the start. I did a test. On a 10-second window, we had 2 additional attacks, which is huge. I think we went from 10 to 12 attacks using the pike versus the lance. So, you know, it definitely attacks faster. I tested it. The lance is still great. The actual, you know, like base damage, as you can see, goes from, well, this has a blood affinity. It's a bad test. But you know, basically, the lance has a little bit more base damage, just a regular R1 attack, but the pike attacks much faster. So the overall damage per second output would be very, very similar, and the pike has a little more range, and I like the fact that it has more speed, so more recovery time, that kind of stuff. The lance is still very viable. If you want something a little bit bigger and slower, that, you know, you're kind of looking for your window to get a bigger hit, either one of these are great options for a spear, and really any spear you want to use. These are just the ones that I enjoyed. If you are new to the game, you know, Rivers of Blood is insane. The weapon art on it, the corpse piler is pretty crazy, and we do have a lot of arcane in this build, so you can really kind of, you know, get a lot of damage out of there. So, you know, I would say that it's definitely worth a shot. Tried it. 18 decks required. We can easily get that with one of 2 talismans that I'll show you here in a minute, because we're at 15. But yeah, this is something definitely cool to check out if it's your first playthrough, being the fact that we have access to it, and it scales off arcane, and we have a lot of arcane points. So let's go into my favorite weapon in the game. You know, and again, like, we went over the pronunciation thing. I know how to pronounce it, but anyways, for the sake of this video, we'll call it the rapier. The rapier is incredible for one major reason for me, and that is the critical. If you look at the critical score under the attack power column on the left side there, where you can see your physical damage, your fire damage, because we have a fire weapon art on it right now. The critical score on there is a 130, which is the second highest in the game. So it's absolutely insane the damage that you can get on a critical attack with this, which we're doing all of the time, because you can turtle with the shield and then do a counter attack, which will break their stance, and then you can just walk up and do a critical, and you'll see just absolute huge numbers. The Anspur rapier is another incredible weapon. It has a lower crit, right, but it's for being able to sit behind your shield and, you know, just poke at an enemy. This one's insane because you can put, like, for example, the blood affinity. So you see the blood pike has the we have the seppuku on this, but if you can put weapon arts on the Anspur rapier, so you can take the bloodlust buildup there affinity and put that on this, so if it can bleed, not only are you proccing huge bleed chunks, but you're also getting, you know, Scarlet Rot buildup, you could put Poison Affinity on this, where you're getting Scarlet Rot and Poison buildup all at the same time. So they're taking, huge damage over time from both Poison and Scarlet Rot. You could put Fire Affinity, you could put really anything you want here. But it's really cool for that. If you're looking to put like a status effect on an enemy and just kind of wait them out and hold your shield, because you're not confident that you're not going to mess up trying to, position yourself to get damage out. This is a great option, and it was definitely worth the extra 1 dex. Again, if you have no interest in this weapon, then only put the dex required in your build for the weapons that you need. But I thought it was a pretty cool weapon for newer players. I saw it in another video, I can't remember his name, where another Greatshield variant. So I'm gonna say, I'm not the founder of this idea and thought process on the the Answer Rapier, and I just I liked it and I thought I'd throw it in there for you guys. If you're wanting something that just kind of looks cool, and has a pretty cool, counterattack slam that will also, put out pretty huge damage, I would go with the Greatsword. It scales incredible off strength. I believe that after doing all my damage tests, and I tested basically every weapon in the game on an Excel sheet, that the Greatsword is the highest damaging weapon for like a heavy, strength scaling, heavy scaling weapon in the entire game. So, definitely check this out. Right now we have a, Holy Affinity on there with Royal Knight's Resolve. I was just doing some testing on there and it hit like an absolute truck. So, that is, that's a pretty cool option. You could throw like any Ashes of War on any of these weapons, by the way, what we're talking about. That Royal Knight's Resolves give you 80% more damage on the next attack that you hit with, and it gives you about a 10-second window to get that attack off. So that's a pretty cool weapon art as well. So any Ash of War that you want to run, I really like for this build for you guys, I like the Royal Knight's Resolve and the Flame of the Redmanes, which is incredible at breaking enemy stances, as you saw in like the videos at the beginning. It's just absolutely incredible to break their stance where they fall down, so you can walk up and just do a critical attack on them. Really, really cool Ash of War. Royal Knight's Resolve is a great Ash of War, and then Seppuku, highly, highly recommend with an arcane build like this that you're running Seppuku. If they can bleed, we can kill it, right? According to Arnold. So definitely run the Blood Affinity with Seppuku and put Seppuku on with your White Mask and Lord of Blood's Exaltation. We'll get all that in a minute, because blood loss is insane right now, and if you can proc bleeds, it's a percentage of their health. So generally it's 10% on bosses and 15% of their health on other stuff. So like, that dragon that you can farm at the beginning out by Fort Ferreth, every time you proc a bleed on, you're seeing 13,000 damage. That's exactly 10% of his or 15%, I'm sorry, 15% of his health, because he's not a boss. So that's why you're seeing those huge chunks, is from the bleeds. So run bleed Seppuku if they can bleed on whatever weapon, and otherwise I would go with Flame of the Redmanes or Golden Vow. So the Executioner Sword, a lot of people are like, oh, I saw this in the 20-minute OP guide, but I didn't, it's not in the actual guide I was picking it up. Well, that's because this is up in the Shaded Castle, up in North Altus, and it's a little tough to get there on a brand new character. So I figured that I was not going to put new players through the absolute torture of trying to go get this weapon early on. But if you can get it, as you saw in the videos at the beginning, it's absolutely insane. And it's if you've got, let's say, summons out and stuff to distract the boss, and you can come up and get the full special attack off on this, then absolutely, the Dancing Blade attack, absolutely get that off, because it hits like a truck as well. This is a great option for newer players as well, since we're scaling arcane, and this scale is going to be an arcane and causes bloodlust buildup. This is awesome because it's got a ranged attack, right? So if you're wanting to kind of stay at a range for one fight, the Bloodblade skill on this weapon is really cool, and you can just kind of throw these fast traveling blood blades at enemies, and it's it does pretty good damage. And definitely check it out if it's something you're interested in. I just wanted to throw out all kinds of options for all kinds of playstyles for new players, because like a lot of you guys don't know that these things exist. So I just wanted to give you put on the table as many options as possible for you, let's say. I run, you know, and then I run a dagger with Golden Vow on it because it's extremely lightweight, so it only weighs 1.5 pounds, and it's not taking up a ton of your equip load. And we can get the Golden Vow, which increases our both our attack and our defense by a significant amount, and slightly less than the incantation, but we don't need that huge amount of faith that you would need to run the incantation. So this is a really sweet early on, as you saw in the OPN 20-minute guide video, early access weapon art that's definitely worth grabbing. So throw it on a dagger and be done with it. And then you know, the commander standard, if you're really wanting to max out your damage, this provides a, I believe, 20% damage buff for 30 seconds, I think, 20 or 30 seconds. Anyways, a pretty good damage buff for a pretty decent amount of time. And you know, you just cast it once and then just, you know, take it off so you're not over encumbered. And you know, if you want to do that like before a boss fight, if you feel like buffing to get some extra damage. The Line Great Bow, this you get for killing a boss. I'm not gonna like ruin anything in case anybody's, I mean, I guess we already did kind of in the intro video, and you're in a an endgame build guide, so I guess, you know, and it says it right there on the weapon art. But this has the Radon's Rain, and you know, it's a pretty good damage bow for our build. You know, it's more of a quality build bow, but you know, with the Radagon Sword Seal Talisman on or something like that to get the dex needed, this offers you an option to have a bow if you want to in the build. It was more so just something that I thought new players might think is cool and want to give it a shot, whatever. I'll figure I'd throw it on there for you. The Dragon Communion Seal is the absolute best seal that we can run in our build, being extremely low faith. Like I said, 15 faith. To have a incantation scaling of 268, like you can see there, is pretty nuts. So, you know, that's you know, the S scaling in Arcane, you know, we have enough Arcane to really push the incantation damage up on this build if you really wanted to. Now, you're probably not going to have enough faith to run a lot of incantations, but like Swarm of Flies does a lot of damage, procs bleeds, and, you know, I'll go over a couple incantations here in a minute. And then lastly, the Fingerprint Stone Shield. So if you level this up to plus 25 like I did, you can see the physical damage on it is outrageous, 600 damage. You can throw like Shield Crash or, you know, any of these shield weapon arts on there, and you know, the cool thing about this is it has a I have a Colt on it right now, but it has a inherent madness buff buildup. So like if you wanted to use it and like two-hand it and use it as a weapon too for like Shield Crash, you can have the madness buildup, and you could put like, let's say like the bleed on it, bleed affinity. So you'll have like a huge, I think it's like 160 blood buildup. It's more than even like a katana or anything like that. You'll have like 160 blood buildup and blood loss buildup, and then a really high madness buildup. Or you can throw, you know, like whatever, you know, status you're trying to put out there on the shield, and it'll cause it. So it's a pretty cool option as well. We just use it obviously mostly for defense, and it has the insane 89 guard boost. So, you know, we're mostly just using it for that reason. So 100% physical damage reduction and guard boost. I'm going to get into more on the shield specific stuff in a second. But I just wanted to kind of, you know, say that this is our go-to. There's other shields out there. Run whatever Greatshield you want to run. Right now, this one, I'm pretty sure there's an interaction where it's bugged. So you'll see videos out there all over the place of people talking about it. But I believe that, and so I'm not the founder of this bug, right? This is just something that I happen to want to take advantage of in the video for newer players. But this, you know, this shield, if you have the, you know, a certain talisman that I'm going to show you here in a second, if you have the setup correct, you will take no stamina damage and no damage at all. Even on boss fights, you could just sit there permanently and just hold a shield and take no damage and not run out of stamina. It's insane. It's completely broken right now. So, you know, if you're new, let's take advantage of that while you can, and learn the game the easy way before, you know, you start taking stamina damage again. So we'll get more. Let's actually get more into that right now. Let's go and look at the shield and how the Ashes of War and the shield and stuff like that work. Okay, so here we are on the shield, you know, on our Ashes of War menu. So I run the no scale Ashes of War, and this is huge because, as you saw in, you know, the clips at the beginning, we're able to use our weapon arts, you know, the skills off of our Ashes of War on our weapon, without having to two-hand that weapon, because I thought to go and put the no skill Ash of War on my shield. So I don't see anybody else doing this. So this build, obviously in all transparency, I'm not the first person to ever come up with a fingerprints stone shield build. They're everywhere, right? A lot of people are taking advantage of that kind of interaction, that glitch, right, with no stamina loss. But I've seen nobody so far run the no skill option, and I thought, dude, that would be incredible for new players, because with the no skill option, when you use your left trigger, instead of wanting to use, like, let's say, it has like a shield bash on there normally inherently, or like, shield crash, or something like that, like the Greatshield inherently have like a big strike attack, and if you're holding the shield in your left hand and a spear in your right, and you press left trigger, well, you can't use like your Flame of the Red Mains or something like that. You'd have to put your shield away, two-hand the weapon, then push left trigger to be able to use your Flame of the Red Mains, and then you're opened up for a lot of attacks. Well, I was like, if we go and buy the no skill Ash of War and apply it to our shield, then new players can have the shield up in their hand still and be able to use the Flame of the Red Mains or whatever weapon art they're trying to use, without having to two-hand their weapon. They can just keep the shield out. So I thought that was pretty cool. I wanted to share that, and that's kind of my reasoning on why I have the no skill. But even on no skill, you can come in and change your affinity. So here's the cool thing that nobody's talking about either, that I found out when I was fighting. And again, I'm not saying I'm the founder, right? But like I haven't seen it anywhere else, that when you're fighting a boss that does, let's say, like a ton of magic damage, like Gideon or Loretta, or one of these that have some of these really hard hitting magic spell builds, you can come here and your regular shield, you see the guard damage negation on the right, physical is 100, magic 77, fire's 81, lightning 79, holy 75. You can, if you're fighting someone who does a lot of magic damage, you could put the magic affinity on your shield and look at the changes. So we lose 5% of our physical damage negation, but it's really, I'm telling you right now, in the grand scheme of things, 95 physical damage. Like I was not able to see my health bar moving more than maybe 1/50th or 1/20th of my overall health. It was just like almost something where you couldn't even notice the health bar moved when we took a hit at a 95 instead of 100. But the big thing is the magic. It goes from 77 to 96. So same thing. When you get hit by a magic attack, you block almost the entirety of it. Again, my health bar just didn't even, even some magic attacks that would one-shot me, and I tested them, that were one-shotting me, my full health bar in one attack, like Loretta's great bow magic arrow thing, it absolutely one-shot me if I didn't have the shield up. But then you hold the shield up, and like I said, I would see maybe 5% of my health bar move, or not even, maybe 2 to 5% of my health bar. And so that 96% magic reduction is huge. And then same for like fire. If you go fire, we actually get 100% damage reduction. So you're fighting something that's doing a lot of fire damage, well, now you take 0 fire damage. So that's pretty sweet. And then like lightning, 98.7. Like again, if you're fighting the draconic boss outside of the capital, and you're trying to get in the capital and you're just getting destroyed by that lightning, well, you just take your shield and put your lightning affinity on there on a Greatshield, and now you're 98.7, 99% of that lightning damage is mitigated, and then further mitigated by your actual lightning resistance from your armor that you're wearing, for the little bit that gets through, which is why you're only seeing like maybe 1 or 2% damage moving on your health bar. So it's insane, right? It makes the boss fights to me, it makes them extremely simple, and for new players, that's the goal here, right? Sacred will boost your holy. It's only 94-ish%, but still, it's huge. And that's kind of the way that works. And I just wanted to show it. So again, you see here, like if we go with like a standard that the causes madness build up 70, that's inherent to the shield. So no matter what route we go, you see it's 70 madness buildup. If I go poison affinity, now we have madness buildup of 93 and poison buildup of 184. If you go blood, like I was telling you earlier, and you want to proc bleeds on bosses and stuff by using shield crash, well, now you have a 160 blood loss buildup and a 93 madness buildup. That's insane on this shield. So you know, if you're not wanting to do no skill and you want to actually use your shield to put some damage out, I recommend the shield crash. And that's what most people use in their builds, I think, is shield crash. If you're trying to use a great shield for damage, shield crash seems to be the best Ash of War. But yeah, you can always come, you know, shield crash and go same thing, madness buildup, blood loss buildup, whatever you want. It's just you're gonna have with your left trigger, you're gonna have that shield crash skill instead of your whatever's on your weapon. So pretty cool. Wanted to give some in-depth value into the shield. You know, same thing with weapons. You can put whatever weapon art you want. Bloodhound Step, Royal Knight's Resolve, Flame of the Redmanes, and Seppuku are the ones that I recommend. Particularly Flame of the Redmanes for new players. You can stagger even bosses. You know, so like the endgame boss in Crumbling, right? The Beast Clergyman can be staggered in, I think, 3 casts of this. And you know, there's a lot of bosses that can be staggered in 2 casts, and then you can go up into a critical and rinse and repeat. The Elden Beast can be staggered with 3 casts of Flame of the Redmanes. It's insane. So definitely take advantage of it if you're a newer player. So that'll cover like the weapon ashes part, and then you know, we'll kind of keep moving along here. All right, so let's talk about you know, spells really quick, which for us is really just incantations. The only incantations that I'm running and that I would recommend, and you can always have this on, you know, as well, is Flame Grant Me Strength, which gives us more fire damage and physical damage, which on this build is awesome. Swarm of Flies, which will throw out literally a swarm of flies, and they will go and they almost on this with this build and the stats that we have and as much arcane as we have with the Dragon Communion Seal, you should see a bleed proc, which is, you know, 10% on bosses, 15% on regular any other enemy of their health bar just disappear when you hit them once with one cast of this. So it's pretty insane. That might get nerfed. Definitely use Swarm of Flies right now if you can. Bloodflame Talons is decent. It's cool. I ended up using the Redmane a lot more on my weapon, but you know, I figured I'd throw it there. It is, you know, a decent, very low faith requirement incantation that, you know, if you want to use it, I figured I'd add it there. Rotten Breath for new players. Rotten Breath is insane. So you'll have this huge dragon head pop up, and it will spew rot on a huge area in front of you, and it will cause the Scarlet Rot effect, which makes enemies take huge damage over time. And you can do it through like the pillars in the Beast Clergyman fight, and like, you know, from safety and like all kinds of cheese stuff. You know, if you want to see like, you know, how to cheese bosses with it, just hop on YouTube and go look at it. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that you can do. But I wanted to throw this in there because it's one of the most like overpowered incantations in the game, and it only requires 15 faith, which we have, and 12 arcane, which obviously we have. So I figured, you know, I'd say, hey, if you're new to the game and you're struggling on something like a boss, this will generate deleted. I think it does about 5,000 or 6,000 damage over time. So like you're struggling on Radon, just, you know, summon people, use this, put the rot effect on him really quick while he's fighting the summons, and then just hop on your horse and run away and run around till he dies. It's kind of like the new player go-to incantation. So that's pretty much it for incantations on this build. Okay, so for the Flask, you have a lot of options here. The stamina recovery speed is really nice on a build like this, where, you know, you're wanting to hide behind a shield, use your stamina, you know, to put a bunch of damage out, then get your stamina back real quick, hide behind the shield, rinse and repeat. This is really nice. There's no real mandatory tier that in this build. You can kind of go with whatever you want to do. There's tiers that give you 90% reduction to like immunity robustness, and like bleeds, that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a whole lot of tiers out there to choose from, and you know, I'll just say the ones that I thought would be the most helpful for new players. The Authority Crack tier is really nice for successive attack power, so that means, you know, the more that you just keep poking at something with your spear or your rapier, stuff like that behind the shield, you're just doing more and more damage. And this one's actually insane. It goes up even much higher than like Millicent's Prosthesis or the Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, which are like huge buffs. This actually goes like 10% higher. It seems to be about 35% maximum increase to attack power, as opposed to like the 20ish or something from the other from Rotten Wing, and I think even less on Millicent's. So this is a really good tier. I would definitely recommend that one. The other one that I would recommend is the Crimson Burst Crystal tier for new players. So this literally, for the entirety of the time that it's on activated, it will just slowly replenish your life, which is really cool for new players. If you happen to take a small hit in there, you'll be back at full health in a couple seconds while you're holding your shield up. So that's pretty nice. You don't have to stop, use a flask, and hope not to get destroyed while you're in that animation. So definitely check that one out. And then I would say Strength Knot early on is huge to boost your strength and boost your damage while you're working up towards the, the higher damage strength that we have at the end game, the 48 strength. Like I would definitely use this on my way up while I'm lower in strength, mid-level strength. It's going to provide a huge damage boost. Dex, you can use that if you haven't gotten any, talismans yet, but you should have the Radagon Sword Seal really early if you followed my early game guide version of this build. Oblivion Hard tier is decent. I don't find it to be that useful. Flame Shot and Crack tier is one that I definitely do recommend. If you're trying to squeeze more fire damage out because you're really going hard on the red main side of the build. Stone Barb's pretty nice. It actually does affect weapon arts from the testing that I did. I mean, maybe I just got lucky or whatever, but it seemed like we were breaking stances a lot more with weapon art as well, not just with our spear attack, stuff like that. But this is really cool because it'll break their stance a lot more. It just doesn't last quite as long as some of the other ones, and it definitely has its place on certain bosses. Spike Crack tier, charge attacks. If you find yourself doing a lot of charge attacks, then this is a really good tier for you. And then yeah, I mean, you can do something like this, reduce your equivalent and throw heavier armor on for something. I don't think it has much use. And then Opaline Bubble tier is really decent for if you're doing something where you find like you're getting one shot by one specific attack and it just keeps that's the only thing. The boss fight's going great except that one attack. This is a really good tier because it will completely negate 99% of the damage, so it'll prevent you from being one shot. So an attack that would normally one shot you, it will instead, if it connects, you had your shield down, whatever, it'll take away about between 2 and 5% of your health, and this thing absorbs the majority of that huge hit. So that's a pretty cool option as well. So there's so many other options out there. I just wanted to grab the basics. With this guide, you have so much flexibility with the damage side of the build, your tiers and stuff like that. So do whatever you feel comfortable with, and let me know in the comments if there's something else that you guys think of tier wise that I didn't think to throw in here, because I have so much content I'm trying to get out that I'm really going through these builds quickly, and I might overlook something. I'm not perfect, so I try to do the best I can and do my due diligence and all my research, but occasionally I'll miss something small, so let me know if I do. Alright guys, so let's talk about armor. So if you have not seen my armor guide yet, I highly recommend you check it out. We have an algorithm that basically dictates what is the best armor, defensively speaking, for every weight point in the game. So for every, therefore basically for every endurance point in the game. So let's say you have 21.7 pounds available after your weapons and talismans. You could go there to the spreadsheet, say, okay, I have 21.7. What's the best combination of armor at that weight? And it'll tell you, what the best head, chest, hands, and feet are. And generally, they're not going to be the same armor set. Like you might have like the white mask, the Ronin's chest, let's say like the beast greaves, or whatever the case may be. It's going to mix and match with an algorithm the absolute best defensive set based off of this formula that takes into account your physical defense, your magic, so like Firelight and all that, and your immunity and robustness. And then it takes that and it pieces it all together and tells you, at each weight point in the game. So it's pretty convenient. Definitely check it out if you're interested in really min-maxing your armor. But if you go to that spreadsheet, you'll also see that at the lower weight points, you see a lot of the same armor. So for example, like the chest armor, Ronin's armor, you'll see in 18 out of 20 chest armors will be Ronin's armor early on in the lighter weight stuff. And so you start to see like what the best piece in each slot for like the lower, medium, and heavyweight areas are. At heavyweight, obviously all the bull goat stuff is going to be king, but for the sake of this build, I wasn't able to really like go in and min-max and say, hey, for this weight we can we can mix and match and do this and this, because you guys are going to change so much. Like if you look at our equip weight, our equip load is on the right there. We're at medium load. We always want to be a medium roll. And so, I mean, if you want to, you can, get a fat roll, whatever you want. But, for the sake of staying alive, medium load is definitely the way to go. And like, let's say you want from the pike and you want to go to the lance. You see now we're at heavy load, or you want to go the great sword. You're at heavy load. Even the executioner sword, you're at heavy load. But it's going to change depending on your weapon, and because there's so many weapons and all of you guys have such different opinions and what'll be the most fun weapon. I just wanted to give a guide on what's generally the best medium to lightweight armor set, which is really all we can kind of squeeze in this build with this heavy heavy shield. So this thing weighs 29 pounds of our of our total 60 pounds. So it's like literally almost half of our equip load. So obviously if we didn't have that shield, we'd have a lot more flexibility in our armor sets. But because that shield is taking all of the damage away from us, and we basically don't ever get hit because of that shield, it's worth the trade-off. And I just wanted to go with the instead of piecing together all these and then you guys switch to the the greatsword and say, well, I can't use that, that combination. And so I wanted to give a general guideline of, hey, the Ronin set for the lower weight ratio is generally the best set in that, low to medium weight area. White mask we're keeping on just simply for the convenience of having that, if you're running bleed, which we run bleed a lot in this build because most things in the game can just get absolutely destroyed by bleed. So we want that 10% boost for 20 seconds that you get from White Mask every time you proc a bleed or, use seppuku on yourself. It also triggers that 10% bleed bonus. So definitely White Mask is really nice for the convenience of not putting it on, taking it off, whenever you're, doing something. Best in slot would be, the Ronin set, right? So like we talked about, but if you're early game and for some reason you need more arcane because you're trying to use something you don't have enough yet, Silver Tier Mask does give 8 arcane, so I figured I'd make note of that. You do a little bit less physical damage, but it's pretty negligible, and so if you really need the arcane to make something work for yourself, definitely consider that. And so let's get into talismans. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Greatshield talisman, because this is the one that I was talking about earlier with the interaction with the fingerprint shield. It first, for some reason the interaction between them, if you have this on, you take no stamina loss when you get hit. So I mean, even a boss, as you saw, like the hardest endgame bosses, you can sit there and take the biggest hits and your health and stamina bar don't move at all. You can just sit there all day. So this is a pretty necessary talisman for newer players. I would say that this is probably the most important talisman. You can kind of change any talisman or anything about the build the way you want, but if you're wanting that interaction, you're wanting that kind of immortal shield stance, then you're stuck with the Greatshield talisman in slot 1. I really like the spear talisman for newer players that are just kind of sitting back and poking, because every time that you counterattack with a thrusting weapon, and that's different from like the counter where you block and you can press the right trigger and it does a huge counterattack and it makes that weird noise after you block, and you can do that big counterattack. This is different. So this is counterattacks unique to thrusting weapons. So when an enemy is in an animation of attacking you, right? So they've started just a regular attack, special attack, whatever, any sort of attack animation. If they're in that animation, when you hit them with a spear, thrusting sword like our rapier, that's another reason I said I really like those thrusting swords. They work with the spear talisman as well. So if you hit them in that animation with any sort of thrusting weapon, you will do normally 30% more damage, I believe. But with this talisman, I'm 90% sure, and again, if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments, but I'm 90% sure after our testing that it's 50% more damage. So you just do a significant amount of extra damage, especially considering that buffs are multiplicative in this. So that's it's huge, and so I would run that if you're playing the turtle build where you're hiding behind the shield and poking with a spear. 100% spear talisman is going to offer you a huge DPS increase. Definitely worth using. If a boss or enemy that you're fighting can bleed, Lord of Blood's Exaltation is huge. It's 20% more damage every time there's blood loss. So whether you're casting your seppuku on your weapon or you're proccing a bleed, which you will all the time, you know, and we'll get into the Spirit Ashes in a minute, but the Mimic that we use is a clone of you, so same thing, they will use Seppuku and everything, and they'll be proccing bleeds, so between the two of you proccing bleeds all the time, it's a permanent 20% more damage, and again, these are multiplicative, right? Last slot, you know, that I would recommend with this kind of setup would be the Rotten Ring Sword Insignia, which does the same thing as the tier we talked about, and this greatly increases our attack power successive attacks, so it's just over 20%, I think, you know, that you can reach maximum with successive attacks. And so basically, you know, the more that you're attacking, the more damage you're doing, and that's pretty cool if you're just sitting there and poking over and over with the spear or something like that. You know, it's very, very useful. So let's talk about, you know, well, what other options do you have for talismans? So the Urchi's Favors is really good. Any of the variants of that increases your health, your stamina, and your equip load. So that's really nice if you're going with one of the heavier weapons. Yeah, that's nice. Radagon Sword Seal is early on probably the best talisman in the game early because it gives you 20 levels basically. It gives you 5 points into Vigor, Endurance, Strength, and Dexterity. So that's huge early on when you don't have the stats to equip whatever weapons or whatever. It's awesome. Also, if you're trying to use the like Antspur or something like that we were talking about where we have 15 dex, you would need one of these two, because this one gives you just 5 dexterity, and one of these two I would obviously prefer this one because I get a lot more strength, endurance, and vigor as well. The downside is you take a little bit more damage, but you got to think you're also getting a lot more health and the ability to wear heavier armor with, you know, 5 more points in endurance. So pretty fair trade-off in the grand scheme, and so if you're doing this I would just recommend probably just going for the Radagons. Dragoncrest Greatshield, if you are finding you're taking hits here and there because, you know, for some reason your positioning's poor or something like that, this is great because it enormously boosts your physical damage negation. So you look at our you know, damage negation, the one turning blue on your right there, we go from 20% to 36% damage negation, which is huge, right? On a really big hit, you know, an additional, what, 16% damage negation? That's percentage, right? So that's huge. So, you know, I recommend that if you find yourself taking physical hits still. The charged attacks, the Axe Talisman works really good on like the charge attack on the Executioner Sword and stuff like that. So if you find that you're going like one of those setups where you're doing a lot of charged attacks, definitely grab the Axe Talisman and probably swap it out for the Spear Talisman. Greatshield is you know, very important to this build, like I said, so if you're a newer player, I recommend definitely keeping that one. Godfrey's really good for the charged spells and skills. Again, that works on like the Executioner Sword. It's 15% more damage. It's a very, very big damage increase, and highly recommend that if you're using something with charged attacks like the Executioner Sword. Shard of Alexander, this is really, really cool for, you know, if you find you're using your Ashes of War a lot, or the special attack, like the Dancing Blade on your Executioner Sword, this gives you 15% more damage on those skills. So like the Flame of the Red Mane, it'll do 15% more damage. If you're hitting for 1,000, you'll hit for 1150 now. You know, it's just, it's a really good, you know, for builds that are using the skills more, it's a really good talisman. I figure I'd throw it in there. Ritual Sword Talisman is great for this build because you should theoretically always be at maximum HP, especially if you have the you know, the tier that's steadily restoring your HP. So even if you do get hit, it'll naturally come back up to maximum, and this gives you 10% more damage. So definitely recommend that as well. Just, you know, pick what you're comfortable with in terms of talismans, and just roll with it, man. There's not a lot of, you know, I mean, you don't have to min-max every little thing. Just go with, you know, what you're having fun with, what you're comfortable with, what makes the game the easiest or most fun for you as a new player. Alright, so let's talk about the Spirit Ashes really quick. So if you followed the OP in 20 Minutes guide, you should have both of these. And I want to talk about what makes each one, you know, good in their own respect. So the Fanged Ashes is really cool because it gives you 2 summons. Both of them can proc bleeds, so the boss's hidden bleed meter, if they can bleed, you know, you build that up with your attacks with the blood affinity. Well, they both have blood affinity weapons, so they both help proc your bleeds and help build up that meter faster, and can proc bleeds on their own too. Even if you don't hit the boss at all, you'll see huge bleed chunks, so they're pretty good. The one that I definitely recommend for newer players, especially if you're running, you know, like Seppuku or something, on the spears, the Mimic Tier Ashes. So the Mimic Tier Ashes are really cool because it just creates a clone of you, and it will use all of the gear that you currently have equipped when you summon it. So you could even summon to like something like, let's say, Rivers of Blood, if you want your Mimic to use that weapon art and spam the Corpse Piler, well, you could do like Rivers of Blood and then, summon the Mimic tier and then switch back to your Spear, and then, you can be using a Spear while, your Mimic tier is using Rivers of Blood or something like that, to get more staggers or whatever. I mean, it's pretty cool how it works. And the reason that I stuck with these two in particular, because a lot of you are going to be like, oh, Dung Eater's the best, this and that. With what we have in terms of our FP, we have 65 FP. There's not a lot of options, and I feel like these are the two very best options. The Fanged Imps cost 50 FP, which, we have, and then the Mimic tier costs 660 of our HP. So, we have plenty of health. We have enough to cast that. And out of, what we had the option to use, these were the two best, in my opinion. So that's why I went with these two. Obviously, do whatever you want. If you want to put a couple more into mind and use Dung Eater, whatever you want to do, just have fun. But I wanted to give my opinion on what I thought would be the two best for this build and complement the build the best. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you didn't, let me know why in the comments. If I overlooked something, an item or maybe a different approach to the build, by all means please let me know in the comments. I'm not perfect. I try to do a ton of research and make sure that I get the most amount of information and data, min-max the best that I can for you guys. But obviously I'm trying to put out as much content as possible for you guys, especially for newer players, and sometimes I overlook something. If I did miss something, definitely hop in the comments, say, hey man, you should try this or that, and that way I can make sure that we disseminate that information to the rest of the comment section for the all the newer players and stuff that are here, and make sure that we get whatever information you could provide out there as well, because that's the whole point of this channel, is to come together and kind of share information for people that are playing Elden Ring. So currently, so that's pretty much it. And on one note, I'm going to say that on the description and pinned in a comment will be links to the channel playlist. So I'm not one of those creators that comes on here and begs you for your sub and like every video. So the one thing that I do ask is that if you do like the video, go to that playlist link, check out, and you're looking for more of my content, my guides, go to that link, and you'll see that we've clearly organized the playlist page into playlists for whatever you might be looking for. So if you're looking for a farming guide for, let's say, like you want to farm Gold Pickle Foul Feet and you want to see that video, well, I have a playlist just for farming guides. If you're looking for a item location from this build, let's say you want the Lord of Blood's Exaltation Talisman, you want to know where it's at, you want to see our item location guide, well, we have a separate playlist just for item locations. We have a playlist for the OP in 20 minute series, where for example, this build here, we have an OP in 20 minutes video and a full walkthrough video. So in the early game series, we basically have a format of, with this build, we showed you in 20 minutes, how to start the game as strong as possible. And then we had an accompanying video of the entire full hour and a half, I think, stream it was, for the full walkthrough of that same beginning of this build setup, for newer players that didn't want the shorter version. They want to see everything. How do I get around the Stormvale Castle up to Lyonry early and all this stuff. So that's all in a playlist, and then our endgame builds are in a playlist. My wife did a fantastic job in organizing the channel in that regard. So I think that it's going to be super helpful for a lot of you guys that are trying to navigate the channel and find whatever videos you're looking for. So again, I'm not going to beg you for a sub. I'm going to say, hey, if you do like it, this will make your life easier if you're looking for more of our stuff. If you sub, great. If you don't sub, hey man, either way, I hope that the video helped you and you liked it, and we wish everybody the best, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Got another OP and 20 minute guide hopefully coming out tomorrow, and a bunch of item location guides we're working on getting uploaded. We've been really busy, and so for those of you that have supported the channel, because we have had an overwhelming amount of support in the past couple weeks, I just want to stop and say thank you. Especially, all those people, not that just subscribed, right? But for, all the kind words in the channel, which actually means more to me than a subscription. I have, I've got a whole nother, I've got a family, I've got, work and stuff like that. So, I've got to, I've got other stuff going on in my life, but, but I wanted to say that, you know, the kind words and stuff. Obviously, that, you know, we're thankful for your subs and stuff like that. But the kind words in the comment section and all the support that people, you know, just it's been a little bit overwhelming. So, you know, I just want to stop and say thank you to those of you that are going out of your way, you know, to support us, and not financially, to support us, you know, like in the comment section and stuff like that. So again, you know, I hope you guys have a good one. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys around.